and gentlemen, as always, I'm your host, Airsoft Al, and welcome to another Media Reviews. Not a sponsored one this time, but a goodie but oldie. Well, oldie in the sense of he finally updated the damn fic, but he's doing some stuff, and that author, of course, who I'm referring to, is none other than the author for Overlord, the Beast of Nazarick. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is actually one that I am very excited for, and apparently the author has been receptive to some of the ideas and suggestions I gave. And there's a lot more in this, my author friend, but we'll get to that. First off, let's go ahead and talk about some of the elements from these new chapters that I actually do like. Among them, of course, is the fact of the main guy is indeed a Marine. He is a full-on goddamn jarhead. He's a Marine. Why? Because I'll tell you this right now. Marines, they be horny, and they be doing dumb decisions with their second brain, if you know what I mean. And let's just say Lupus Regina is kind of one of the subjects for the second brain. But, you know, I could go into hour-long discussions of why Lupus Regina is probably one of best girls of Overlord. But that would leave me here all day, and I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to talk about these chapters. So basically, this does follow the same arc of the latter episodes of Season 1, including, you know, going to the Adventurers Guild, basically moving with the Sword of Darkness, and then, of course, dealing with the king of the woods and forest, the large hamster. And no joke, they were actually pretty enjoyable. One of the things that's definitely kind of questionable at best, and kind of showing, hey, this guy is kind of evil in a sense, or at least he's not chaotic evil, at least he's somewhat light evil. And I'm not going to spoil it, I'm just going to say, yikes. Although the guy does actually give a warning about the fact of, oh, hey, yeah, no, there's a rape in this. However, for someone who grew up in the ultra-violent anime of the 80s and 90s, I was not fazed a bit by it. And, yeah, for all you other little snowflakes who are like, oh my god, it's rape! Motherfucker. You cute, adorable, just summer child. Go watch some MD Geist. Go watch some Violence Jack, where a kid literally gets decapitated by a fucking chainsaw, and blood just spews everywhere. Go watch some Mad Bull 34, because believe me, if you think that's bad, then you wouldn't be able to stand up to the ultra-violent anime of the 80s and 90s. You soft little boys and girls. Anyway, though, I will be saying this. He did at least not try to make it over-fetishized, which I am very happy for. And he actually did make a reason of saying, hey, this is a bad thing. So, you know, actually being victimized, men actually being raped being a real thing. And I know feminists are going to be saying, I know the feminists on the left and the SJWs are going to be like, oh, men are never raped. They're always the rapists. Yeah, no, fuck off with that shit. But going forward, at least, I will say that the author has set up for a lot of cool things, including possible internal strife within the Great Tomb of Nazarick. Among those, of course, is the fact of, if he wanted to, he could set up not just, you know, the the one military character from Far Cry 5, who I actually did enjoy. If you see my earlier review, if you saw my first review on this fic, you know the clip I'm talking about. I'm not going to use it. Instead, I'm going to be talking about what he can do going forward. Going forward, making a military villain, he should take cues from Jonathan Irons.
What you're seeing is advanced warfare. Atlas has the single largest standing military in the world, but we answer to no country. Unlike the government, we don't keep secrets of our capabilities. We don't sell policy, we sell power. We are a superpower for hire.
Because, let's be honest here, if you want a good military villain and one who is legitimately something that looks at the world, Jonathan Irons is a good template to use. Jonathan Irons, who he himself is a veteran and sees the incompetencies of the governments, sees the incompetencies of how the world works, and literally something that took his own son. In this case, what he could be doing with his own character is create, like, take that archetype of Jonathan Irons and put it into his character. He is a military veteran of World War III, he is a U.S. Marine, and he could be bitter with how world leaders handle situations, how they handle conflicts, and the fact that they don't know what they're doing. Especially when it comes to the subjects that he could tackle in Season 2, because he has stated that, yes, Season 2 is being planned, and he is kind of implementing some of the ideas that I presented in the first video. So here's some more ideas for you to implement and kind of work with. What you could do is, when it comes to his philosophies, because he's a veteran, he could literally you could take notes from Jonathan Irons, especially when it comes to power.
Everybody thinks their ideas are right. That's why the people you call terrorists call themselves freedom fighters. The fundamentalists think they're right, the capitalists think they're right, the communists think they're right. And no one will ever convince anyone of anything. And all these honorable men lecturing the world from the floors of congresses and parliaments, whose time has long since passed, refuse to admit, publicly at least, ideas don't determine who's right. Power determines who's right. And I have the power, so I'm right.
When it comes to democracy.
Democracy? Democracy. Democracy isn't what these people need. Hell, it's not even what they want. America's been running around the globe trying to install democracies in nation after nation for a century, and it hasn't worked one time. Now, why do you think that is? Because these countries don't have the most basic building blocks necessary to support a democracy. Little things like, we ought to be tolerant of those who disagree with us, or we ought to be tolerant of those who worship a different god than us, or that a journalist ought to be able to disagree with a fucking president. And you think you can walk into this country based on fundamentalist religious principles, drop a couple of bombs, topple a dictator, and start a democracy? Give me a break. People don't want freedom. They want rules, boundaries, protections, from invaders and from themselves. People need a leader who can both provide the constraints and the support to keep chaos at bay. And you give them that, and they'll follow. And that's where I come in.
And believe me, that's just 2 examples you can use. Finally, when confronted, or at least when speaking to the rest of the world, because, he may have created his own guild or mercenary group, and he literally is doing a lot of good, to the point that they ask him, hey, we would like you to advise us on what to do. And when given an Irantel, mind you, and speaking to them, not just the noble faction, but also the other factions as well within Irantel, he could flat out tell them that their wars don't work.
I am honored to be the first CEO of a private corporation to become a member of the United Nations Security Council. Unfortunately, my appearance today has been clouded by a flurry of speculation that my company is developing a weapon of mass destruction which would be capable of targeting specific ethnic groups. I want to address these allegations head on. Are we developing such a weapon? No, we are not. Because we've already developed it. But with all due respect, the United Nations is a relic from a different time when nations were unique in their ability to solve the world's problems. But that just isn't the case anymore. Primarily because you have outsourced the job to me. I have sent people to die in your wars. So I feel uniquely qualified to tell you, your wars don't work. Which is why my priorities have changed. from profits to policy. Because politicians don't know how to solve problems. But I do. So let's be clear. I am here to solve the world's problems. And I believe the world's problems begin with you.
And from there, literally from there, he could go down the route of plunging the world into a war if he wanted to. Or, and this is something else that's actually kind of interesting, Jack Nicholson's character, who was a high-ranking officer in A Few Good Men, actually had a lovely breakdown, and something that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially when it comes to the military, or at least how some officers look at leadership and how they handled situations. During the whole story, we've seen how this character, the Marine side, has been fighting the Beast. In this case, this is where the author could, if he wanted to, could actually show the Marine side actually taking over from the Beast. And when pushed by Momonga, or Ainz Ongon, why he's doing this, he could snap. Because when pressed for the truth, he could respond much like Jack Nicholson's character in A Few Good Men.
You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
After the rant, that's where it could kind of show that the grievances that he has from World War III is still there. And it's not the fact of, oh, he needs therapy. It's not the fact of he needs pills. It's not the fact of he needs help. It's like what Thomas Shelby says.
That made all them tablets. Just needed another fucking war, eh?
He's just a soldier looking for another fucking war. And war he shall bring, and war he shall have. And at that point in time, that's what could divide Nazarick. Between Ainz Ongon, the civilian, the salaryman, versus the Beast of Nazarick, the Devil Dog of Nazarick, the head of Wolfpack, a veteran of World War III who still has grievances about what his and the world governments did to their world, and what they, in the New World, these kingdoms, these nations, could do to that world. And who better to make the world right and better than a combat veteran, than a soldier, than a Marine? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's a bit much, ain't it? A bit extreme? I want you to actually do something for me, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to actually talk to a combat veteran and ask them their views on how the government handled the conflicts they were brought into. How the governments handled the conflicts of the Middle East, how they're handling the conflicts in Ukraine, how they're handling the conflicts in Israel right now. Ask them their views and how they would fix it, how they would actually handle it. And I can assure you, they'll tell you exactly what I've said, or at least to a degree, in their own way tell you what I've said. Because a combat veteran is not the same as a civilian leader. For a combat veteran knows the real cost of war and how to handle it. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got to say. Because if you want to read this one yourself, pin comment down below. And believe me, it's legitimately a good story and legitimately is fun, and I legit do look forward to the next chapter, especially Season 2. Because I legit want to see this character evolve from just a mindless beast to a calm, calculated devil dog. Because I don't care what people say. Because if you put someone in that kind of situation between the beast and the devil dog is going to win 9 times out of 10. Just saying. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Airsoft Al, and I shall see you lovely, lovely people in the next video. Till next time. Later.